never thought that I would be the one who turned you down and you disagree. We've been on and off, you were never mine to keep. Times that I have cried when you left me without even saying goodbye. I was longing for you to say you love me back. Yes, I fell in love with you and tried my best to make you love me. And now that you say you want me, oh, my answer's no. Yes, I fell in love with you and tried my best to make you love me. And now that you say you want me, oh, my answer's no. I never thought that I would be the one who turned you down and you disagree. We've been on and off, you were never mine to keep. Times that I have cried when you left me without even saying goodbye. I was longing for you to say you love me back. Yes, I fell in love with you and tried my best to make you love me. And now that you say you want me, oh, my answer's no. Yes, I fell in love with you and tried my best to make you love me. And now that you say you want me, oh, my answer's no.
Hey, Jeff. Good evening. And
Good evening. How you
we
doing?
are live.
Mm,
It's yet another week of
yeah.
cycling in review. May 29th, 7 o'clock Eastern, US Eastern time. Um, how have you been? Short week, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. A short week, but a lot to pack in for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah. But we got a nice ride in, didn't we?
Yes, that was a really good ride. It was nice and quick.
Mm.
Some new roads for me, some climbing, so it was good. I liked it. The weather was perfect for a nice ride.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Furthermore, I've spent some time on Swift. Yesterday we had the Thursday evening ride that we do as a group, and again from Dutch Diesel. It's such a fun ride. What we do is we do 6 laps of a London course, and it's a progressive build up. So we start with 2 watts per kilogram, and we go to 2.2, 2.4, then we go down to 2.2, and then the fifth lap is the hammer lap. So we start at 2.5, 3.0, 3.5, 4, 4, 5, and then it's basically all hands on deck. See who can hold on the longest. And the unfortunate thing is when I'm in that ride, uh, I'm red, so I'm leading the charge together with the yellow beacon. So it's painful, but it's a lot of fun. Everybody's looking
Yeah.
forward. There's a lot of banter on the chat going on, and it's so much fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's good to have. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you say 2.2 watts per kilogram, is that the honor system? Do you just have everyone just try to target that? Is that how that works?
Uh, yeah, correct. So the yellow beacon, the right lead,
Mm.
keeps it at tries to keep it as much as possible at 2.2 watts per kilogram. So sometimes it's 2.1. We don't use erg mode in during that ride. So there are a couple of small hills, false flat pieces, and that's where you kind of have to adjust your pace to the climb or the descent. Actually, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's so one of the things that you probably never saw, and that's a feature that hasn't been out there for a while, is they built in a fence at some point. So you had this fence, and you could put it as a ride leader at 2 seconds, 5 seconds, or 10 seconds in front of the beacon. So it was measured from the beacon, from the race leader, and you could go through the fence, but after a minute you would be kind of kicked out of the group. So
Oh,
you
really?
would be
Okay.
riding more as a group, but it was too buggy. It was um, uh, a lot of issues with that. So it has been a couple of months, and I guess they haven't figured it out yet. So that's
Yeah.
yeah. But it's okay. It's everybody is back to normal again, and just like any group ride, you have people that feel strong and they take off, and you have others that kind of struggle to hang on to the ride just in real life. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Because I joined a training race. I think it was a B, or it was just a group ride, a B ride, and they said it between like 3.2 and like 3.4
yeah.
watts per kilogram, but I never saw it dip that low. you know?
It's very dependent on who is the right leader. The group that I'm part of is known that we really keep it close to the pace, and sometimes it's difficult, especially when you have a draft functionality in Swift, and when it's double draft and you're not that experienced and you drop out of the draft, you struggle to get back on, especially on a B ride. It's
Yeah.
the group is going so fast that if you, I don't know, are 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds off the back, you struggle hard to get back on the, because you have to do, I don't know, 4.5, 5 watts to really sprint back into the group. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's
it's kind of interesting because with that ride that we did,
mhm.
which is their Tuesday Nighter loop,
It's a gentlemanly pace until we get to the turnaround, and then everyone knows, like, at that point it's just all guns blazing,
Yeah,
try to drop everyone.
yeah.
But new people will come out to the ride, and going up that hill to North Brook,
Mm-hmm.
they're attacking. And it's like, we haven't even started the hard part yet,
Yeah, save
like
your
we
matches, right? Keep the gunpowder dry.
right.
Right,
And
right.
everyone's, it seems like it's always the newbie that comes out and they're going too hard from the start. And it's like, believe me, you're gonna get your workout in. We got some hills to come, but
Exactly.
we hit the hills and they're nowhere to be seen. So it's like, okay,
Yeah,
just sit in. Don't worry, it'll be tough.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same as and we spoke about that. I think it was with um, that it happened to me when joining a new group, fast group, and somebody gets a flat, and you feel great, and everybody just goes about the way. Two or three guys stay back to kind of help the guy that got the flat to get back, and I thought, okay,
Mm.
first ride, let me be, let me be that gentleman and help them to get back. Far do I know that absolutely the three strongest guys left or stayed behind to help them. So I was just on the skin of my teeth trying to hang back into. So I was, for the rest of the ride, I was just like wasted because I was
Yeah.
trying to get back into the group after trying to be nice and staying behind for somebody who got a flat. So that was a big time trial effort. So
Yeah.
um, so we prepared a couple of topics, and I thought it would be fun to start with the one thing that you found, and let me set up, and that's the trail across the U.S. So let me switch the screen. This one, and I hope that everybody can read it. So this talks about a new 4,000-mile trail which will let people bike across the US on one path, which is really interesting. Can you see it?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's can you zoom in on the map?
Yeah.
What you can see when you zoom in is that it does go through Pennsylvania. So it'll be curious to see what part of our trails that we know will be included
Right.
in this.
Yeah.
There you go. So it looks like, what is it? Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Yeah, and then you go across.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it ends in Washington, right?
Right. And what it
Yeah.
says is it 50% is already there, and they're kind of stitching all the different routes together.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
Yeah. And Julia's online. Let me see if I can get a question. So she says, "Are you going to have different theme and topics every week?" Yes, we do. So we get the objective here is to review the week in cycling. So we talk a little bit about what we have done, and then we look at global cycling news, domestic and also local cycling news, and we basically come up with a number of topics to discuss each and every week. And even now with COVID and still being in somewhat of a lockdown modus, there's a lot happening in the cycling world. So that's good for us. There's a lot to to talk about.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was in the news, and we spoke about that last week. So that's a nice follow up. Was the part one of the documentary of Lance Armstrong, right?
Yes. Yep.
And so, what did you think? What did you think about the documentary?
I liked it. I hope it was a gentle warm up to the second part, which will be aired this weekend.
Right.
Because it seemed to review a lot of the same material that we've
Yeah.
heard. The story with Betsy Andreu. Hearing from the other teammates about them not being competitive and then deciding to dope. Together.
Right.
So there's a few things in there that were new that we really hadn't heard. One was that Lance admitted that he wanted to use even more aggressive measures, right? And his doctor said, no, we just need to stick with EPO,
Yeah.
and the blood transfusions.
That was surprising, but it does portray and reflect on that era, right? Where if you didn't dope, you basically wouldn't have a job anymore, and
Right.
that's also something that's being discussed. And when the takeaway that I got, one is that they are basically teeing up a number of speakers. So you did see the wife of Andreo, you saw Walsh, the journalist that he had this always ongoing fight with, and there were one or two others that I think Hamilton was there, and
Right.
they already started to give away bits and pieces. And one of the things is that Ivan Basso and others, he makes a big point apparently in part two about almost like the unfairness of I'm being punished, and he's basically saying one of his best buddies being able to act normally, right? So Hincapi, and the same happens in Italy, where you have Ivan Basso, and you have somebody like Pantani, who's absolutely disgraced, and the same in Germany. You have Eric Sabel and you have Jan Ulrich, and there's
Right.
these and there is a point there. So I'm curious to find out what that will be, what
Right.
they are going to be talking about during that. And as we talked about him starting with doping when he was 21st and at his 21st birthday, and did that contribute, yes or no, to him actually getting cancer? So that's he says, yeah, it might, and it might have been the growth hormones that I took only once. He said only
Right.
once,
Right.
but that might have contributed to it, but they don't know. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
don't know if I
interesting.
told you, but I used to do a training ride in Austin, and Lance would show up to that. Did I tell you about that?
No.
Oh yeah. So when I went to the university down there, and I looked like my build. I think it was like 135 pounds, and Lance was not. I mean, he looked like the rest of us, right?
Yeah.
And then he was on the. It wasn't the postal team. It was whatever team was before that. And he came back and
Motorola.
looked like.
Yeah.
Was that
Motorola.
Yeah, it was Motorola. He was riding a Caloi bike, I remember. And he came back, and his neck was so thick. He looked like a bodybuilder.
Right.
He was just. I think he had to cut his sleeves on his jersey because his arms weren't fitting in there, and it was like he looked so different, and so different from any other racer, there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, 3 months, you grew that big.
Spend some time in the gym.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting because I watched it with both my daughters, and my youngest daughter, she's 12. She had just one question after the other about how does it work, and what if he didn't dope, would he still have won the Tour? And I think that's a question that will never be answered, right?
Right.
But what's a thread throughout the documentary, especially in the early days, is that he was by far the best cyclist.
Yeah.
At least according to the people that were interviewed, right? You had a number of his later to be teammates, and obviously you didn't have any of the social media like you have right now. So there was that kid from Texas basically destroying everybody in these races. So that's my point being that with the doping or without the doping, he was still a very strong rider, right? So
Right.
yeah, so that's Sunday, part 2. I'm another 2 hours. I'll be watching.
Yeah.
That will be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you found something else which I also found very, very interesting. So we were talking a little bit about Swift just now being on trainers, and obviously you generate a lot of power, right?
Right. And I think people always joke about that. Like, can't you be powering something with that? You know, it's a
Exactly,
shame
yeah.
you're just wasting it on heat, right?
And it's funny. Is that 235 watts? Does that, I don't know. Can you make some coffee? So you found something. So let me. I think it's super interesting. Wrong screen. Here we go. So it says human-powered Tesla Model X charger.
Yeah, and I'm a Tesla fan and own a Tesla, so it was kind of had the cycling and the Tesla in that. It's right up my alley.
Yeah.
But yeah, the video is interesting because they got Olympic track athletes, so these people are known for putting out huge watts, right?
Right.
And the bikes they were on were kind of it was interesting choice of bikes.
Exactly. I didn't expect them to be, I don't know, track racers, because of if I look at the bikes, those are pretty, let's say, standard bikes. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they rode for 20 minutes, right? And they were going all out. I mean, you saw them. They were sweating. They were really pushing. And they added, what was it? Was it 2 kilometers
so
of range?
20 minutes, they 1.25 miles of extra range to the battery.
Right. Yeah.
So that's not a lot. So they say it took 9 people to achieve this result. So I don't know if you would be able to sustain it. It would, if you would do it as an individual, it would take nine times as long to basically generate 1.25 miles. But it's an interesting test. It's
Right.
yeah, it's funny. I don't know if you if you would basically capture all the energy that you cycle. How much would that be at the end of the year if you are a regular Swifter, for example, or Trainer Road, or any of these other platforms? It's funny. The Tex Neo that I have actually doesn't need power, because you generate power, and it's enough to basically send the Bluetooth and everything else to the computer. So you can also use it as a trainer when you go out and, for example, for a race, and you want to take it with you, you can actually use it as a regular trainer, but still on your computer have a completely wireless setup. So that's a nice advantage of that specific trainer.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That was cool. Because I often thought about taking my kicker, my Wahoo kicker, to cyclocross races and using that for the warm-up. And then I was like, I wonder if I can Bluetooth to my Tesla and pull up, Trainer Road on the screen, and then I can power it from the Tesla, But yeah, that's cool that it's like self-contained. It can power itself.
Exactly. Yeah. The only feature that you don't have is on the downhill. and that's actually then the same as you would have. So the Wahoo kicker or the Cyclops or a hammer, they have this flywheel. So you notice something, but you really don't get that inertia, that extra pedal when you go downhill. When you have no power on the Tex Neo, you don't have that also, and otherwise you would have some less resistance there. So yeah, but that was an interesting test, and powering a Tesla, and they were able to do it. So that's pretty cool, right? It's not but
cool.
Still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Tesla has a power wall, which is just basically a battery that you stick on your wall, typically in your garage, and you can charge it with solar, or you can charge it from the grid at night. So it can charge the batteries when it's cheap, and then you can use that to power your house or whatever. But I could see hooking up a trainer and, charge, and then at the end of the month, you get however many free hours of air conditioning use or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you never know. So that's something else that we did in addition to our ride. So earlier this week on Wednesday, the podcast with Kim Geis was released, and we spoke about that last Friday, but has been received really well. We saw many downloads. I think if you haven't listened yet, for people that are currently watching, I would absolutely recommend it, obviously, but it's a really good podcast talking about Kim, her career, coaching. We talk a little bit about weight training, but we talk a lot about the track. So that's really, really interesting. It's in Trexeltown, so close to in our area, and they organize a lot of events for kids, for adults, for women specifically. I highly recommend also going to their website, and if you're interested in learning more, or maybe even interested in going and visiting the track to watch, or maybe even try the track yourself, I would recommend listening and visiting their website. It was a good podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. What I thought was really interesting about the interview was her take on what's going on with COVID and the uncertainty of races and events, and how she dealt with that throughout her career, being on the bubble, being on the Olympic team and whatnot, right? And she had some really good advice for that. So I think that's worth a listen just for that advice. And then when you spoke about her crash and how she came back and what that method was, I think now there are people that have said, you know what, there's no racing, I'm going to take a break, and they're starting to come back now. And I feel like there's two levels. There's people that didn't stop, right? I think I fall in that category. Just kept on training. And then I know friends that were like, I'm just going to take a month off, and not even worry about it. And now they're coming back, and they're like, oh, how do I get back in shape? And I think her story of that was good, and I think it could be helpful to people that are going through that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent point. The small sidestep. I've always kept this rule in mind that if you don't do anything more than 3 weeks, your fitness start to digress really, really quickly, right? So if you kind of maintain it, and it's a week, maybe 1.5, 2 weeks, it's okay. But if you really literally stop with doing nothing 3 weeks, that's I'm not sure if you have some similar, let's say, rule that you use to follow.
I try not to go more than 2 weeks. Or like, what was it? 2 years ago, we went to Disney for 10 days, and I just trained like a madman going up to it. And I was like, okay, I know I'm almost overtrained. I went to Disney, just tried not to eat French fries and hot dogs every day. But when I came back, I was super motivated. And we came back like on a Thursday, and I raced on Saturday and had a great race. So I think you can, up to 2 weeks, you can go and not really lose anything. But that third week, you're definitely going to start losing
It's going to
your
go
fitness.
down really, really hard.
Mhm.
And going to Disney, that's no joke either.
Right.
So I had to recover from Disney, and it was only a week. I had to basically recover for 2 weeks, and we flew
Yeah.
back and forward, and it was absolutely crazy. But that's something completely different.
Yeah, it was funny. I went to go get right before the trip. I told Jen, I was like, I need to get all technical clothing. I can't wear cotton and everything, so I was getting golf shirts, right, because they would wick away the sweat and
Yeah,
everything.
exactly.
And then I went to a running store. I was like, I need your lightest running shoes. And they're like, what are you? You're gonna run like a marathon? I was like, no, I'm going to Disney. I just don't want to have heavy shoes on. So I bought brand new shoes, and it was great. I mean, I wore them every day for whatever, 14 hours, no problems, you know?
Yeah, doing 10, 15,000, 20,000 steps per day.
Oh,
Probably.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's crazy. So, and so that was Wednesday, and the day before we interviewed, and I have, where did I put it? Oh, it's over here. Sorry for that. We interviewed Rich Drew.
Mhm.
So, do you want to tell a little bit more about Rich?
Yeah, right. So I've known of Rich for years, but I've never met him in person. He was next door neighbors to my childhood best friend, and they both lived in Dallas.
Mhm.
He got into cycling late in life and just went nuts. You know, he was making Instagram videos several times a day, reviewing everything, going into like hour-long interviews or reviews of like a seat post, you know, and manufacturers were sending him stuff like, hey, can you review this bike? Can you review this? And he just, you can tell from the interview just how excited he is about cycling
Yeah.
and everything that goes with it. And yeah, he did not disappoint. He he brought his A game to that interview.
Yeah.
We got some really good information,
Yeah.
and I think there's going to be a lot for listeners to glean from that one.
Yeah, I'll I'll put his link in the chat and also on the website and on the on Facebook. But for not only for mountain biking, and we talked about that quite extensively, but we talk about the jumping and making wheelies, but also especially the cornering, right? As a whether you're doing cyclocross or when you do crit racing or whether you do mountain biking, the importance of good cornering. Good cornering is how important that is and how much time you can win by doing that. So that a lot of really good takeaways from that interview. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned in his videos, he's really good about breaking down the process, like of what you're doing on the bike, and he'll explain it in very simple terms, and you're like, oh, now, you know, I know I've been doing that, but when he mentions it, you're like,
Mhm.
you're more conscious of what the actual steps are.
Yeah.
And I found something similar. I went to a driving school where we took our cars out on a track,
Yeah.
and a driving instructor was explaining why you brake in a straight line because all that weight is going on your front wheels,
Yeah.
right? So you have two grip spots. You don't want to be in a corner because if you're cornering and braking, you're only on one wheel, so
Yeah.
you're decreasing your brake spot. And it's like, that's, you know it, like, you do that on the bike, but it makes sense when someone explains that to
Exactly.
you. And I think that he's good at doing that in all aspects of cycling, really.
Yeah, absolutely. He breaks it down to very easy to understand steps, and the way he does it is pretty amazing too. He's got a lot of charisma, and he's very articulate in how he tells and explains things. And we also talk about maintaining the channel and the work and effort that goes in there. And that's absolutely true, right? You might see a 15-minute video, but it might take, I don't know, 24 hours to get that actually there. So No, so that's going to be released next Wednesday, and so keep your eye out for that. It's really good. And in the meanwhile, we won't um, tell you yet who, but we got two other guests confirmed, and we're super excited to start interviewing those two guests. So that will be very interesting to be talking to them and to find out all about their cycling careers and their experience and things that they experience. Yeah.
Mm. Is one of them Lawrence Tandem?
No. And
No?
Lawrence is very busy.
Yeah.
I think tomorrow is actually his Dirty Cancelled. It was funny.
Yeah.
Another thing. So I did an easy ride on Wednesday on Swift, and gosh, I forgot her name. She won Dirty Kansas in 2019. Amity.
Batty?
No, Amity. Now I have to know.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my Strava. I won't share my screen, but I have to find out who that is. Amity Rockwell.
Mm.
So she won Dirty Kansas 2019. So she organized a ride, and you can ask questions, right? So I chatted. I said, "Are you? Do you know about Lawrence Tandem's initiative for Dirty Cancelled?" And she said, "Oh yeah, we are training buddies, and we are actually planning to do something on that same day with a couple of other folks, and we are going to publish or release something based on that." So she is also going to do Dirty Cancelled, and so that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. That's this Sunday, is that right?
Saturday or
Saturday.
Sunday?
Yeah.
I actually I thought it was Sunday, but yeah. The so that's a good, let's say, segue into what the guys from EF Pro Cycling. And I'm sharing that on my screen. So Alex House did from Colorado mountains to Kansas.
Yeah.
Right. So he obviously he documented everything on Instagram, and he basically I think he's got the route here somewhere. Yeah.
Mm. It's interesting. They asked him, how this came about,
Mm-hmm.
and he said in Colorado the winds are always blowing to the east.
Yeah.
He's like, and I always thought, like, what if I just kept riding east and I could get a ride back? Like, I bet I could ride all the way to Kansas.
Yeah.
It really was just kind of like a thought, He's like, well, let's do it.
Yeah. And the thing is, and then we spoke about it a couple of times, is that setting goals, right?
Yeah.
And what we learned this afternoon is that, let me see if I have. No, I actually don't have an article here, but we spoke about Everesting. And so last week, what's his name? Keegan Swenson took the record of
Phil
Guyman. And now a climber pro cyclist from the Hans Grohe team took the Everesting again. There is still they say it's not official because the rule is that you take any climb, doesn't matter what climb, but you have to do the climbing from that one slope. So what he did was he climbed the first or the one part of the mountain from the one side, descended on the other side, and then did, I don't know, a number of times going up and down. So officially, he didn't make it because he did it from the other side. Still, it's the same mountain, but he climbed it the first leg up from the one side, descended, and then did a couple of times up and down from the other side. So, so that was interesting. So let me see what his name is. It's interesting. Buchmann.
Yeah.
Buchmann is, and he's a really good rider. Bora Hans Grohe, and it's on Cycling News. So he again in 7 hours 28 minutes. So he beat the record of Keegan Swenson with another 15 minutes. So that's pretty amazing. He came in fourth in the 2019 Tour de France. So he's a very legit cyclist. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting how many rules they have for this, and one of the rules is you can't have a downhill into the climb.
Right.
Because if you think about it, you could just have a valley, right? And you climb up one side, coast down, and go halfway up the other side. Just keep going back and forth like a pendulum, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that was interesting. I like what Phil had said, that they wanted to have the straightest downhill they could find, so they didn't have to think about it. He just wanted to get down as quickly and turn around. And then in his video, I don't know if you heard him say, but they decided early on not to shift into the big ring when they got to the top.
Oh, okay.
Because he said that was like 61 times that the chain could fall off.
Yeah.
And it was just one risk they didn't want to take. So they just left it in a little ring the whole time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and then we had somebody where we live really close. He did the Everest thing. He did it in 14 hours. But there's this. It's in Valley Forge actually. Did you see it? He did that climb 81 times, 81 times up and down. But he made it. I think it's really amazing, and it's just very impressive that you're able to do that for 14 hours. I'm not sure if he was by himself, but 81 times. That's truly amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, back in 2001, I was training to ride from Albuquerque to Dallas. It was like 800 miles. And for training for it, I would just go to a race and then just ride my bike home. I could go do a mountain bike race, have my road bike, and ride that home. Just ride all the time, ride 2-3 times a day.
Yeah.
And the first leg was going to be 210 miles. So one weekend, I just rode 210 miles, got out of a hotel, spent the night, got up the next morning, and rode back. And just during that one leg, I was like, my shoes are wrong. I've got the wrong saddlebag. You figure out all this stuff. I was like, I'm changing up everything. Because my plan was to have like extra change of clothes and all this other stuff. I'm like, I'm ditching all of that.
Yeah.
So when these guys did the Everesting and they said they learned so much, I'm like, I can 100% see that. You get into these efforts, it's like you're out there all day. There's little things make a huge difference.
Yeah, that's true, and that's also one of the things that we touched upon with Rich Drew. Actually, is the experience, right? You only learn it by doing it, and that's if you don't have that experience and you try to explain to somebody with limited or no experience, it really doesn't serve any purpose, or it doesn't have any real value because you haven't done it yourself. So that's very true. That some of the things you just have to endure yourself and start building that experience. So, and with these extreme rides, when you do 200 miles like a Dirty Kansas, or the one year is not the same as the other because of weather, because of material, because of another dozen things. So it takes years and years often. When preparing for the Cycling News, I thought about, did Chris Froome already find his new team. I didn't see. We spoke about it 2 weeks ago, but I haven't seen anything yet. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
haven't
sure if
either.
that's just, I don't know, something him kind of challenging the leadership, right?
Right.
Because what I did see was that they were going to announce if the Tour de France was, I mean, and they are specifically talking about the Tour de France, if and when the Tour de France is going to happen, they are going to announce soon who the leader is going to be, which is, I don't know. I understand, but it's so early, right? Normally they don't in a normal, let's say, Tour de France year. They also don't do that so far
Right.
ahead of time.
Right.
Ineos doesn't. Any other team,
Mhm.
yes, but because they have 1.5, 1.5, and not 3.5, or maybe in their case 5.5, because you have so many good riders. But they don't do that, so that's funny. And I was wondering if, and that's another something that I found, and it was in the news. The top 15 or top 25, top 15, let's say, annual salaries for these pro team riders. And you see here that Peter Sagan takes home a 7.6 million. And there you go. You have Team Ineos is in that top 15 4 times. Let me
Wow.
see, 5 times even. So you have Chris Froome with 6.8, Geraint Thomas 5.3, Egan Bernal 4.1. Then you have Kwiatkowski 3.8, and Carapaz, 3.8, 3.1,
Mhm.
sorry, almost 3.2 million. So that's, I don't know, when you add everything up, it's, I think many Pro Tour or World Tour team would, that's almost like their yearly budget,
Right.
And this is within 5. So that's they have a lot of money in their money sitting in their riders.
Right.
But it was interesting to see that, and they publish this list every year, and you have Tom Dumoulin, who moved from the one team to Jumbo-Visma, and you
Mhm.
have Primoz Roglic also in that same list. So that's also a little bit less than 6 million in two riders. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting that Nairo Quintana is so low in there, huh? He used to be such a. I remember he was like everyone thought like he had so much potential, like he was going to win the tour, you know. He's
Yeah, you never know, right? I didn't see the documentary. I still need to do it.
yeah. I was going to mention that.
Yeah, but I've heard a couple of stories, and the thing is that a movie star in which is a Spanish company, but it's also very important in the region there, where in Colombia, where Quintana lives. And he just followed the rules, so he wasn't really arguing too much with Valverde, who's going to be in the lead and who's going to fight for that leadership position in the team. So hopefully now he can spread his wings and get the results that everybody was thinking that he would be getting in the earlier years.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. You definitely need to check out that documentary. There's a lot to talk about. We could talk about that on one of these calls. Yeah, that's really good. Did you also see that Ridley, the bike manufacturer Ridley, and Eddie Merckx may be pulling out of the World Tour and sponsoring some teams because they're just not selling enough bikes. It was going to affect 4 professional teams.
Right.
So it's interesting. If the bike manufacturers can't sell, right, then they can't support the teams, and the teams can't support the riders. It's a waterfall, right?
Yeah, I'm surprised to hear that, and maybe not. But if you take, for example, the cycling industry in the US, they have done amazingly well. I think they have done so well that, for example, Trek actually added a number of riders to their team, basically mid-season, because they can, and they are doing an amazing year, especially and I think we spoke about that, right, in the segment of sub $1,000 bikes, and they are sold out, like many others, but I think the number of bikes to be sold in Europe, it's a different dynamic there, because everybody already has an X number of bikes, right? And with that uncertainty, they're probably not going to buy an additional bike. But yeah, so that's impacting them. Oh, that's tough to hear, because they Merckx and Ridley both were in World Tour teams. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if it's the same where you were, but when I was in France, it seemed like people would buy a bike maybe every 10 years, right? And you get a really nice one, get like an Eddie Merckx with Campy on it, and then ride it until it was just so old, it was just basically falling apart, and then they go out and buy something new. But you would go on group rides and see 6, 7-year-old bikes, and you're like, oh, you need a new bike? No, I got like 3 more years, right? And it would be like they had an old road bike and a new mountain bike, so now they can't get a new road bike the next year, right? So the bikes were a lot more expensive over there too.
They are, yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's yeah, but this was an interesting list, and it's actually, I don't know, compared with other sports, it's still not a lot, right? Yeah, 7 million, 6.8. It's a lot of money, but they also put in the effort. So something completely different, and I don't think you have seen it, but so we talk about Swift often, and you have Trainer Road, and you have Sufferfest, which is actually quite interesting, and you have a number of these other platforms. So now recently, let me see, we have hey Brandon, good evening. So he's enjoying the show, so that's pretty cool. Thanks, Brandon. And I know that Brandon and Rosebery, they like to be outside with cycling, but for the on the inside cycling front, and let me share my screen. It's really funny. This one. So you have this game which has been around for, I don't know, a long time, Grand Theft Auto. And it's a violent game, and it was I don't know, people get hijacked and there's shooting, and there's a lot of violence in that game. But it's a huge virtual world, and they keep on building, and it's called San Andreas, and that world is open for everybody. Everybody plays his own game inside that world. And now you can already ride a bike there, but now they have a modification, and you can hook up your smart trainer.
That's cool.
So you can actually ride around in that world with your smart trainer, and you see here they call it a Wanu bike computer. And you can actually ride around in that. So let me see if I can play that clip.
like, first of all? Is it for you? Is it something that you can set up? Secondly, what you need to get this up and running or riding. Thirdly, a guide on how to get it working step by step to get your Grand Theft
see
Auto
that?
5 on PC
Yeah.
up and running with your smart trainer.
So when
Some
you go
advanced
up
troubleshooting
up a
and then a
hill,
few handy tips at the end.
your
I
smart
thought I'd kick
trainer,
off
you
today with a
actually feel the
discussion on what
resistance,
the experience
and you
is and what you can
can take
expect
your
the experience to
controller
be
and
like riding a
actually,
bike on Grand Theft Auto
steer
5.
the
Well,
bike
first
in
of
that
all,
world.
it's single player mode
Oh,
only,
nice.
so don't expect group
I
rides,
think
group
it's still a
races,
nice
or anything
gimmick,
like
but
that
it just
happening anytime
shows the
soon. Not quite a
potential
Zwift killer in that
of
respect. There's
what can be
predefined
done.
course
And
riding
obviously
where there's a
other
number of
people
courses
hit the
already listed
cyclist and they
in the
fly
mod that you can
around.
just select on start, and just
they've
will
already got
take
some
you
funny
auto riding through
clips.
those up the hills and down the hills and things.
But it's
There's
the
free riding
resistance
with
is there. It's still a
autopilot,
little
so
bit
you
buggy.
can just
But
click
it
no
does
course
work.
and ride. It will just
So
guide you
that's
through some
I
random
think
roads.
that's
And there's
that's pretty
full
amazing.
free riding. And yes, you can steer. It's game on. You can ride anywhere. Anytime you're using autopilot, you can't.
So I wanted to share that. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. You think we'll be riding in Minecraft pretty soon? Super Mario Kart?
Yeah, exactly. Throwing apples or what have you. So that's that's funny.
Turtle shells, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
It was interesting this week. We've had beautiful weather, right? And I've been trying to get outside as much as possible, but with work being so busy, I found myself riding in the garage more on my trainer,
Yeah.
just for the fact that if a call came in, I could check emails, and if I needed to get on and call, I could just hop off and be right there, you know? So I think that there's definitely still a use case for all of these platforms during the season, during the year, right? Where you're just so busy and you can't be untethered for an hour.
Right.
Better to be around, right?
Yeah. It's and maybe we can because it's still a little bit early days, but maybe next week we can talk a little bit more about cycling and getting together as a group. I think the region where we are at moved from red to yellow, so that's super positive. I saw that you can be in groups, still within social distancing, but of 25 people. Does that then really apply to, for example, cycling also? It will be interesting to learn more about, what's possible, what's allowed, what can we or can't we do. Me personally, I'm conservative. I'll kind of look and see how everything is evolving, and but that those will be interesting, let's say, developments on getting together and doing group rides, and how's that going to evolve. And then obviously you have the races and the events, hopefully getting a little bit more concrete, and we learn more about that sooner than later. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because one of our neighbors who also rides mountain bikes, he was asking me if I get yelled at when I'm out riding, and I said, no, I mean, I'm by myself, on a trail by myself. And he said he was out on a trail by himself, ran into some riders that he knew, was talking to them. They were riding with a group of other riders, so it was probably 15 people, right? And some runners came by and just started yelling at them and telling them, they were doing all this wrong and, being selfish and stuff. And he's like, I'm just riding by myself. But so even if they relax that, the perception may still be out there, right?
Yeah.
And I think like you, I think we do need to be more cautious, right? I think groups of two riding side by side, I think everyone's okay with that. But when you see a pack and they're drafting and, like it was 6 months ago, it just doesn't look good, right?
No, exactly. The perception is absolutely there, and it's. I know everybody's eager to get together, and it's a social sport, especially when you go out. But that extra week or 2 weeks is really not going to matter. And I just always think about riding by yourself or with two. You get so much stronger than riding in a group, right? Obviously, the group will push you when you don't have that level of fitness, yes, because you want to hang on. but that hanging on also comes with a lot of, let's say, loss of, let's say, bodily fluids, because you're riding really, really hard. So I think the combination of, for a fact, the combination of training by yourself and training in a group is important, because by yourself you just get stronger, and you can be, when you talk about specific training, it's so much more easier to maintain and sustain that. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that will be curious, and I wasn't able to get it up, but the USA Cycling sent out another update on the calendar. I don't think there are many changes, but they are holding on to the different championships. So the nationals, that's basically their light in the tunnel, at the end of the tunnel, hanging on to that and prioritizing on that.
Right. Yeah, it looks like everything has been postponed pretty much across the board. First events would be August 23rd for Gran Fondo National Championship. But the track, let me see, where was track? Is that over here? Oh, track right here. September 15th through the 20th.
Yeah.
So they know the dates of that. And then mountain bike nationals would be no earlier than July 27th, which still seems pretty early.
That's pretty
But
early.
yeah, I think we talked about it in an earlier one with it being in Winter Park, right? They can't go much past probably September before they start getting some snow, right?
Right.
Cold weather.
Yeah, exactly. So that's yeah, it's still some uncertainty there. So that's that's for sure. Yeah. Are you going out tomorrow, Sunday?
Thinking Sunday, I may try to go for 100 miles on the mountain bike.
On the mountain bike. That's
Yeah.
Be safe.
Yeah. So, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm planning to go out tomorrow just by myself, and then on Sunday I have my Swift group ride. So that's the planning for now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Have you been watching the Tour de Gila on Swift?
No, I haven't actually. I've seen a couple of things there, but it's I have to look into that. Yeah.
It would be really neat if they had enough developers to put the actual stages in there. You know, I'm sure it takes thousands of hours, but if they had like an easy upload where someone said, "Oh, I did that race. Here's all the files," and they just upload it and it creates the environment, right? You can do the actual
compiles the
Gila ones to
environment,
climb.
and you have everything there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That there are platforms that kind of put that, let's say, image of an avatar on a map, but it just doesn't look that pretty. So I think, but I'm sure it will come, right? It's with everything being mapped, whether it's via Google Maps or your Strava or anything like that you will be able to render your own route, but then in a virtual environment. It's going to come. The question is how soon and how quick, and how big of a computer do you need to have that? To have that with enough processing power to do that. Yeah.
Right. It's interesting. That little Apple TV does a really good job with Zwift.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I mean, that's pretty intensive. And it chugs along. You don't have broken frames or any lag or anything. Just keep straight up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I think it's from the computers, and right, and being a developer and consultant. In the old days, they would program, and they only had so many bytes to develop something, and that
Right.
was because memory and chips were just like crazy expensive, and then everything got more cheaper. And I always look at, okay, the developers got a little bit lazy,
Yeah.
right? So they didn't have to optimize everything anymore to fit in a couple of bytes. But with an Apple TV, they still have to really make sure that everything runs properly with that processing power of an Apple TV. So that is really impressive. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It runs on an iPad too. No problems. So it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that concludes this Friday. We had a number of viewers, so thanks everybody for listening in and for a couple of the questions, and I hope that everybody enjoyed it. And we'll see you again next week.
All right. Thanks, Jerry.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.